We are so excited to be jumping into phase 2 of our pathway lessons. And our goal for this chunk of lessons is to break it down like 8 stories. Because if you look at the Bible, it's a pretty big book. I can get a little bit overwhelmed looking at all those pages, a lot of words I don't know how to say, don't know what some of it means. But when we can break it down into smaller stories, it can help us put the pieces together. So each of you will be getting a bookmark that looks like this, and it has one graphic for each of the 8 stories. And so as we go along in this series of lessons, you can color one in as you go, or if you're an overachiever and want to color them all in to start with, go for it. But this is to help be a memory jogging tool as you hear each of these stories. So as we get started with lesson 1 of our phase 2 series, I'd like you to take a look at this toolbox, because like we said, the Bible is big. It can be a little bit overwhelming, but I want you to think of each drawer in this toolbox as one of the stories in the Bible. There are different kinds of stories in scripture. There's just like boring laws, there's poetry, there's stories. Parables is just a simple story that teaches a lesson. That's probably my most favorite of the different types in there. But if you think of each drawer as a story, we're going to think of drawer number 1 today as a drawer of family. Why this is important that we can think about the Bible in smaller chunks is because my story, my life story, and the life I live is part of God's big story, because we were created in the image of God on purpose for a purpose. And once I saw myself in the story of God's big story, that changed everything for me, because I know he cares about my story and my part in that. Especially for folks as they're starting out on recovery journeys, it's easy to look for and focus on differences in those of us in recovery, those of us that aren't. But what we're going to work on as we learn about the Bible and the different parts, the different stories that make up the Bible, we're going to work on shifting our thinking to look for similarities between us and others.
Yeah, just like we learned in phase 1, sobriety is not the absence of the addiction. Sobriety is the addition of connection. And that's why relationship and community is just so important as we recover. And I think it comes from kind of all people. We have these 4 kind of main fundamental questions. You may not have asked all these questions specifically to yourself in this order or looking like this, but even if you haven't, you can kind of boil down or kind of work your way through. It kind of comes down to these 4 main questions, right? And those questions are: where did I come from? Why am I here? How am I supposed to live while I am here? And what's going to happen to me when I die? And really today we're kind of unpacking that first question, like where did I come from? Like, where did this all begin? And that's where we start talking about family, right? That God created us for family. Now, I realize for a lot of us that when we hear the word family, we talked about in phase 1, that like it's really hard for us sometimes to understand or believe that this God that we've never seen can love us when the people that we can see hasn't loved us. The same thing can be kind of true with family. Some of us hear the word family and we automatically put some walls up because our experiences with our family have been very dramatic, very painful. Some of us, there's a lot of trauma attached to those. But even in that, like we can look and kind of grasp or kind of cling to, or I would just say like this, I would encourage you working with your clinician or like to unpack some of that, of like, even if it was really, really rough, that there's an opportunity for that to mean there's got to be something better out there when it comes to understanding family. God created us for family, and he also created us for this family business. In God's kingdom, there's a lot of different realms. Like, how many different realms? How many realms? I don't know.
I don't know.
I was like I don't know either. There's a lot of them. All I know is like in the Bible, like angels show up and then they leave. There's like spiritual things that are kind of happening, and it's not really exactly clear where they go. There's a lot of things like that go on, and we're not really sure how many there are. But we know there's multiple ones. And so earth really is just one of those things. God created us for family, and he created us to work in the family business. And our family business is here while it's on earth. Seeing in Genesis with Adam, right? They were given the Garden of Eden, and it was like, hey, name the animals, be fruitful and multiply, after Eve showed up. But like there was that on earth, like that's one of the realms. And he created us for this family business, and it was it's on this earth. Okay. So, and you think about like what, like you ever heard people say, and again, this can touch on some hard things for people like that. But I mean, I think for my middle son, he probably hates it because he hears all the time, you look just like your dad. You remind me so much of your dad. But the reality is all of us were created in the image of God. And that is kind of lays the foundation and the framework for a lot of the struggle that we have, is because we look like God, and our enemy, Satan, that he hates that about us. That when he sees us, it's a reflection of God. And that's kind of like a part of the basis for kind of how much he doesn't like us. And God created us to work in this family business. And the reality was, work up until sin entered the world was not supposed to be something that was going to be hard. It was something that was enjoyable and fulfilling. And I think we can see that. I can even see that in my work now that I have. I love pieces of it, but other pieces of it are very exhausting, and they're hard, and they're labor intensive. And it's kind of a back and forth with that thing. It's just like in page 417 in the big book, right? Like it talks about acceptance, that like we realize that nothing, absolutely nothing happens by mistake on God's planet. And so the reality for us is that it's going to be difficult. This is how it's going to be for us. God created us for family. He created us for this to work in the family business while here on earth, while we're here, man. But there's going to be a struggle, and there's going to be hardship in that, man. Have you ever just stopped for like you thought, or like maybe this is a big part of recovery, because we think about like, if I could just get this, then it would be good. If I could just get this done, if I could just get those court charges dropped, if she would just let me come home, or if he would just want to get back together, or if I could just get this money right, if I could just get my money right, then everything will be good. Like we project and worry about the things out there that are coming. That's all kind of connected to that, to what happened when work became a battle for us.
And sometimes don't you think like the more questions that pop up, or the more struggle pops up, the more questions you have.
Oh, yeah.
At least that for me.
That's real.
There's a quote I love by C.S. Lewis. It says, God made us, invented us as a man invents an engine. A car is made to run on petrol. Obviously, he's British. I don't say petrol. A car is made to run on petrol, and it would not run properly on anything else. Now God designed the human machine to run on himself. And as we were talking through this, there were a couple things we kind of honed in on. I don't know if you've ever thought about these things before, but did you realize that our eyebrows have a purpose? This little strip of hair right here, the purpose of that eyebrow is to catch the sweat as it runs down our forehead instead of it going straight into our eyes. God made that. How about the epiglottis? Because we all use that word every day.
Say that 3 times
That
fast.
little hangy thing in the back of your throat. It has a purpose. It has a purpose.
Yeah.
It covers your trachea or your windpipe so that when you're swallowing your food, chunks of food don't go down in your lungs.
It's a pretty big deal.
God made that.
Yeah.
Epiglottis. How about your big toe? Have you ever thought much about that before, other than...
Not till I hit it on something. Like when I'm walking, I don't think about it as much till I was stepping
Then
on
it
something.
hurts for 4 days,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But the main purpose of your big toe is to keep you balanced and stable while you're standing, walking, or running. God made that too. Just what would you imagine not having that? It's the little things that we don't think about every day that God made on purpose for a purpose. And all of those parts make up us.
Yeah, love that. And it's a reminder that all those things that make up us, and it's like all the different parts of our lives, the hard parts of our lives, the good parts of our lives, the sad parts of our lives, all those parts make up this life that we live. And this life that we live is our story that is a part of the big story of God.
We are incredibly grateful to be present with you all on your journey of recovery, wherever you're at that stage of the game. And like we said at the beginning, this part of the Pathways program is just designed to help us understand the Bible as one big story of God's love for his people. This isn't intended to replace the Bible study or to override, a church involvement or any other sort of personal study you're doing on your own. But there's a saying that says you can teach the Bible to people, or you can teach people the Bible. And our goal is to help teach you the Bible so that you can help teach others the Bible. We hope that you'll continue with us on this journey as we continue in phase 2.